The city streets glistened under the weight of an endless rain, neon lights bleeding across puddles like fragments of forgotten dreams. Daniel Hayes, 35, walked briskly, his black jacket pulled close against the chill. His rugged face was clean-shaven, his short brown hair damp from the drizzle. He had lived his life in control, CEO, respected, admired, but tonight, the world around him felt heavy. Then, as he turned a corner, he froze. There, slumped against the brick wall of a shadowy alley, sat a frail beggar. His late 50s had aged him beyond his years. His weathered face, worn cap, and torn brown jacket told stories of endless nights on the street. His frame was thin, posture bent, but it wasn't the suffering that made Daniel stop, it was the face. Even through the years, even through the lines carved by hunger and pain, Daniel knew him. Samuel Reed. A name Daniel hadn't spoken in decades. His childhood friend. The boy who once saved his life when fire and fear consumed everything. Now here he was, forgotten by the world, lost to the streets. Daniel's chest tightened, his steps faltered, and the rain dripping from his hair felt colder than ever. His past had come rushing back in a single glance, and he knew nothing would ever be the same again. Daniel's heart pounded as he stepped into the alley, the rain muffling the sound of his footsteps. Samuel looked up weakly, his weary eyes struggling to focus. The years had carved deep lines across his face, but behind the dirt and fatigue, Daniel still recognized the boy who once stood by his side. Sam. Daniel whispered, disbelief and sorrow in his voice. Samuel blinked, confused, then shook his head as if denying reality. No one's called me that in years. Daniel crouched beside him, ignoring the filth soaking his jeans. He reached into his wallet, pulling out bills, but Samuel raised a trembling hand. I don't want your pity. Daniel's throat tightened. It's not pity. It's me. Daniel Hayes. Samuel froze, eyes widening. Recognition flickered, followed by disbelief, then shame. He turned his face away. You shouldn't be here. You don't know what I've become. Daniel placed a firm hand on his shoulder. I know who you were, and that's what matters. For the first time in years, Samuel's eyes filled with tears. And for the first time, Daniel felt the weight of his own success collapse under the guilt of forgetting the man who once saved him. The cafe smelled faintly of roasted coffee and fresh bread, a stark contrast to the damp chill outside. Daniel guided Samuel inside, one hand gently resting on his frail shoulder. Customers looked up briefly, some with curiosity, others with indifference, before returning to their conversations. Samuel's steps were unsteady, his thin frame shivering under the weight of exhaustion. Daniel found a corner booth and helped him sit down. For a moment, Samuel kept his cap lowered, ashamed to be in such a warm place. Daniel ordered 2 hot meals and coffee, watching his old friend across the table. Memories of their childhood flickered in his mind, Samuel shielding him from bullies, sharing scraps of food when neither had enough. Daniel's success suddenly felt hollow, as though every victory had been incomplete without honoring the bond they once shared. When the food arrived, soup, bread, and roasted chicken, Samuel's hands trembled as he reached for the spoon. His eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve this, Daniel, Samuel whispered. You deserve far more, Daniel replied firmly. I should have found you sooner. Samuel sipped the soup, and Daniel saw hope flicker back into his friend's eyes. The rain had eased by the time they stepped outside. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement. Daniel held his umbrella over Samuel, shielding his frail friend. Each step was heavy, not from rain but from the years of silence. Finally, Samuel spoke, his voice soft. Do you remember that night? The fire at the old mill? Daniel froze. The memory returned with brutal clarity, the fire, the smoke, the panic. Samuel had dragged him out, saving his life, but Samuel's leg had been crushed, ending his future. Daniel's throat tightened. I never forgot. I owe everything to you. Samuel shook his head, weary eyes filled with both pain and forgiveness. You don't owe me anything. Life, it just turned out this way. Daniel's chest ached. He knew better, he had risen, while Samuel was left in the shadows. Tonight, fate had forced him to confront it. The next evening, Daniel led Samuel through quiet suburban streets. The world here was different, painted fences, porch lights, children's laughter. Samuel walked slowly with a cane Daniel had bought. His eyes darted, uncertain, afraid this was a dream. They stopped at a modest but warm house. Its windows glowed with golden light. Why are we here? Samuel asked. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. Because this is yours. Samuel blinked, trembling as Daniel pressed a small key into his hand. Tears welled instantly. This can't be real, he whispered. It is, Daniel said, voice breaking. You gave me a future. Now it's time you had one too. Samuel wept, clutching the key. For the first time in years, he felt dignity return. Samuel stepped slowly onto the porch, his cane tapping against the wooden steps like a faint heartbeat echoing into the night. The wood creaked under his fragile weight, each step a struggle between doubt and hope. His hands, aged and trembling, held the small brass key as though it were a treasure too delicate to be real. Rainwater still clung to his sleeves, dripping onto the porch as his fingers hovered uncertainly over the lock. For a moment, he froze. The key shook in his grip. Memories of cold alleys, sleepless nights, and countless doors slammed in his face all surged back, telling him this couldn't be his. That this moment was a dream that would vanish if he dared believe. Then, with a shaky breath, Samuel slid the key into the lock. The soft click of the tumblers felt like thunder in his chest. Slowly, almost fearfully, he turned the handle. The door opened, and warm golden light spilled out, washing over his weathered face. It wrapped around him like an embrace he had been denied for decades. He stepped back, overwhelmed, his chest heaving with a mix of disbelief and gratitude. Tears blurred his vision as he turned toward Daniel, his voice breaking. I never wanted anything, Daniel, just to know I wasn't forgotten. His words, heavy with years of silence, trembled in the air. Daniel, standing just outside in the rain, felt his own throat tighten. The droplets running down his face could no longer hide the tears in his eyes. His black jacket clung to him, soaked through, but he barely noticed. His voice, steady yet tender, cut through the storm. You'll never be forgotten again. Samuel's lips quivered into the faintest of smiles, a smile Daniel had not seen since they were boys. Slowly, he crossed the threshold. The house seemed to welcome him, warm air, the faint scent of wood polish, the soft hum of a fireplace. For the first time in years, Samuel felt the ache in his bones ease. The weight of loneliness began to slip from his shoulders, left behind at the doorway. Daniel lingered outside, the rain pattering softly on the porch roof above him. For once, he wasn't Daniel Hayes the CEO, the man defined by his success and power. He was simply a friend repaying a debt of love and loyalty that time had never erased. His chest rose with a deep breath, lighter than it had been in years. Inside, Samuel let his cane rest against the wall. He stood tall, if only for a moment, bathed in light that made him feel human again. And as Daniel finally stepped in after him, he knew that this quiet act of kindness, was worth more than all his wealth. Because in giving Samuel back his dignity, he had also rediscovered his own heart.